Kirk is my favorite character on Gilmore Girls. Somehow his ability to fit into the town while also standing out and bringing the hilarity and the fire makes him my favorite character. But as I started to watch the show more, I started to see signs of a neurodivergent king, particularly of the ADHD spectrum. And you guys already know that when I see ADHD represented in film or TV, I gotta talk about it. This is a hot take, so make sure you stay to the end for the answer to this question. Welcome back to the In My 20s Diaries. This is a channel about the intersection between ADHD, Christianity, and singleness. So if any of those are your vibe, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below and give this video a big fat like. Without further ado, let's get into it. So the number one sign that Kirk might have ADHD is because he constantly changed jobs. I did a little bit of Googling and I found out that over the course of the show, he had 62 jobs. We saw him working in Taylor's candy store. We saw him working at Dosey's. We saw him as an handyman.
Get off my porch.
I was told that you wouldn't be here, but to look for a ceramic frog with a key in it.
I don't understand.
We can't find the frog.
And then we saw him as an entrepreneur with tons and tons of businesses. This is common to people with ADHD because they're chasing dopamine. When you first start a new job or a new activity, your dopamine soars to the top. And then as time goes on, it kind of levels off and falls. So if the person cannot find a way to make the job more interesting, then they get bored and they quit. And this was a consistent pattern that we saw with Kirk. The second sign that Kirk might have ADHD was because of his impulsivity. So impulsivity is defined as the quality of being easily swayed by emotional or involuntary urges or by momentary desires without weighing them rationally. So there were three main times that we saw Kirk's impulsivity at play. Number one was when he asked out Lorelai. I felt so bad for him in this instance because it was obvious that he just wanted someone to love. And I think that he had saw that Lorelai was pretty. That was like one of the number one things that he told her. But I was so proud of how Lorelai handled this moment because she could have really shut him down. But instead, she talked to him like in a very human way. And it really made me like her more for just a second. The second time with the impulsivity was when he bought the Twickham house. So apparently him and Luke had a conversation and he told Kirk that he should go ahead and start his life with Lulu. And so they decided to buy the Twickham house down the street. Well, this was out of nowhere and him and Luke literally went back and forth for the whole episode about buying the house. And I really think that Kirk was just overly emotional at the time and wasn't thinking very straight, so it was a very impulsive decision. And the third and my favorite time with the impulsivity was with Uber. So Lorelai gets into a sticky situation where she's trying to go and visit her parents and her car is in the shop, so she needs a ride. Turns out that she decides to try one of Kirk's businesses, Uber. He drives people from one place to another and then they pay him for it. Well, Lorelai gets in the car and she realizes that, wow, like Kirk didn't really put much effort into this.
Hey, Kirk, it's freezing back here.
I drilled a few holes in the floor. 2 customers passed out last week. They were old, so it could have just been old people passing out. Or carbon monoxide. I just thought better safe than sorry. How about some music? The radio was stolen, but I'm happy to sing any song you request as long as it's by the Carpenters.
When Lorelai asked for water, he gave her water from a Brita filter. There was no radio, and he actually didn't check the gas before he left. And so once they got to Lorelai's parents' house, the car broke down. This ended up with him having to go inside and have a very awkward dinner, but it was really a funny episode that I really liked. But just the fact that he didn't check the car before he went out shows that he was a little bit impulsive. The fourth sign that Kirk might have had ADHD was his inattention to details. So the biggest time that we see this happen is with the planning of Lorelai's wedding. So apparently in A Year in the Life, Lorelai and Luke are finally getting married. So Lorelai implores Kirk to go and decorate the venue for them. Well, Kirk goes to decorate the venue and apparently, like ADHD does, he lost track of time and he lost track of how things were supposed to be looking. Lorelai and Luke wanted something to be super simple and he ended up going way overboard. Of course, it all works out in the end, and I'm still mad that we didn't get to see like a recording of the wedding or who was there, and I really hope that we get justice for that wedding later on because we watched over 7 seasons of that. Another example of Kirk and his inattention to details was in The Long Morrow. In this episode, Taylor asked him to test out a traffic light by driving, and he decides to give him his 1964 prized possession car to do so. He gives him the car, so Kirk gets in it, and the flash of the stoplight goes off and he crashes straight into Luke's diner. If he had been paying attention to how the other traffic lights were and how bright they could be, he might have driven just a little bit slower. But it kind of just seemed like he lost his attention somewhere in the driving. The reason this happens is the brain has a problem with processing information. I talked about this in another video where I compared the ADHD brain to a 1970s computer. The 5th sign that Kirk might have ADHD is because of losing things. This is number 1, like the most annoying ADHD symptom. And I remember I made a video just recently talking about how one time I lost my keys and I found them in the refrigerator. Anyway, the episode that I want to talk about is the one where Kirk is hiding Easter eggs for the children. He painted 59 Easter eggs and hid them all around town. And then in the next episode called Tick Tick Boom, we found out that Kirk lost all of the Easter eggs because he didn't make a map, which is very ADHD coded, and thought he could just find them all. So he literally goes throughout the whole episode going around town trying to find these Easter eggs, and he eventually collects them all. But it was hilarious to me that he didn't even think to make a map, and that kind of goes back to the whole impulsivity point that I was talking about before. Number 6 is that Kirk never rests. So a lot of us with ADHD, we have a really hard time just resting and doing nothing, because when we're doing nothing, our brain is understimulated and we get bored, and boredom is often painful. Every time we see Kirk, he's always doing something, and it kind of just seems like he has an issue with just relaxing and resting. And same, Kirk, honestly, same. The next one is that Kirk often blurts out or interrupts people's sentences, and there were too many episodes of this happening for me to like even insert them all in here. So I'm just gonna say that this was something that kind of annoyed a lot of his like families and neighbors, and it was not something that they appreciated about him. I'm about to tell you the last and most important symptom that I believe shows that Kirk might have had ADHD. But before we do that, I do want to say, if you made it to this point of the video, please give it a big fat like. The like tells the algorithm that you like this content, so it can recommend it to more people, and so we can grow this family around here and have more pertinently discussions about film and TV. Number 8 is that Kirk often had issues with deciding what he wanted to order at Luke's diner. And this is something that seems small, but I think it was really important to point out because decision making is a very tough task for people with ADHD. The reason for this is because it involves a lot of different issues like task initiation, listening to small details, comparing information, and remembering things, which are all like weaknesses of the ADHD brain. And there were many episodes where Luke comes in and he's asking Kirk, like, what do you want? And he goes waffling back and forth between this item and this item and this item. And this is in stark contrast to Lorelai and Rory, who almost always get the same thing or who always know exactly what they want. And I thought it was really interesting that they put this in here, and it just made it seem like it was something that was important. So now, hearing all of the details, the big question is, does Kirk have ADHD? Examining all of the details that we just discussed, I believe that it is highly likely that Kirk had ADHD. But because he's just a film character and nothing was ever confirmed from the series creators, I think that it's important that we don't just jump to the conclusion that he does or didn't. But I do want to hear you guys' opinions, so I'm going to leave a poll down below, and I want you guys to vote so we can see, do you guys agree with me that Kirk could have ADHD, or do you think that he had something completely different? I would love to know what you guys have to say. Now to today's moment of inspiration. For the moment of inspiration today, I think it's important that we take a little moment and acknowledge God. I know that this video is not particularly a religious video, but there were a lot of deep topics that were discussed in Gilmore Girls that I think a lot of us can relate to. Dear Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for the viewer that is watching this video. Lord, I pray that if they are part of the neurodivergent community and they have felt any of the things that I felt growing up, any shame or hurt or they didn't belong, I pray that you would just heal them from that and help them to walk away from this video with a feeling of being seen and heard and understood. And Lord, I pray that you would just use me as a vessel to talk about ADHD, but show it in a way that is possible. Show it in a way that is positive and that can impact the YouTube space in a positive way. And I just thank you for TV shows that really just give us a really nice, warm view of life, and also that kind of normalize things that are usually taboo. I pray that you would keep this viewer safe as they go about their daily life. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. Also, if you made it to this point in the video, comment a leaf emoji down below and then I'll make sure to heart your comment. So that was today's video. I hope you guys liked it. Make sure that if this is your type of content that you subscribe, because I have another video coming out next week about what Gilmore Girls got right and why everybody I feel should watch Gilmore Girls at least one time. Anyway, I love you to the moon and back, and make sure you watch this video or this video in the card.